The government's response has been to introduce a flat rate £200 energy bill loan to each household. But obviously that is a loan, so it's going to need to be paid back on their future bills over the next 5 years. What do you think of this scheme?
We speak to 30,000 customers a day. I think we're incredibly aware of the impact of energy price rises on people. We've absorbed an enormous amount of this, but we can only do so much. And we've been speaking to the government since August and to other energy companies to identify ways that we can work together to reduce the impact of these colossal global gas prices. The scheme the government have introduced is very similar to ones we proposed, so we're really supportive of it. There's a couple of things. I think, first of all, we'd rather it was more than £200, but I'm not going to quibble. And maybe we'd have spread it over a bit longer to make up for the higher amount. And I think the £150 rebate on council tax is welcome, but obviously we'd have preferred it to be on energy bills. But I think there's a quick way of getting targeted help to people. I really hope that makes a difference, but we're under no illusion that the scale of rises, even after that help, is going to be really difficult for a lot of people.
There was an interesting conversation that Martin Lewis had with Chancellor Rishi Sunak. And I just wanted to put the same question to you that Martin Lewis asked the Chancellor, and because he said this £200 loan potentially could make the situation worse for some people, and a couple of scenarios. But if you can imagine, if you're a young adult living at home now, so your parents benefit from that £200 loan, but if you then move out next year, you're going to have that £40 a year repayment added to your energy bill without having benefited from that loan credit. And then it's the same potentially with a house share. The household splits the £200 loan, but then when you move out, again, you will individually have to pay back that £40 a year. How's that going to work?
We shouldn't be thinking of this as a loan to households. I think that's a real confusion for people. Let's be really clear. This isn't a loan that's going to go to individual named consumers and then expect them to repay it. There's no interest to be paid. There's no chance of anybody falling into debt. The reality is that the way our energy bills work is there's an enormous number of credits and levies on bills that go on in the background at all times. For example, there are levies on all of our bills to pay for new nuclear power stations, or to pay for green gas, or to pay for historical investments in renewables. There's also levies to pay for things like the eco scheme that helps low-income households with energy saving measures. All of this goes on in our bills anyway. This is a new item on our bill. I think what's happening here is the government's actually handing the money to households during this time of extreme stress, and then is going to be recouping it via a levy for a relatively small number of years and at a relatively modest amount. So this isn't a loan that anybody is going to be forced to take or forced to repay. It's just a component in our energy bills where this year it's going to make bills go down compared to where they would have been by £200, and then for the next 5 years, it'll make them go up by 40. It's interest-free. So we as energy payers, energy customers, consumers, are not going to be paying for interest on any loan, and no one's going to be tracking who's got it and who hasn't, who's paying it. It just goes on every bill over time, like so many other parts of our bills. I think the other bit is that question about, for example, someone who is not an energy bill payer today, so they're not getting the £200, but become one at some point in the future and they're paying the 40s. I guess those time effects happen on everything. So, for example, there'll be people paying, the nuclear levies today that won't be around. Maybe they'll have moved out of the country or, for whatever reason, no longer be an energy bill payer when the nuclear comes on stream. So they've paid for it, but they never got the benefit. There are people, I guess, who pay for education or the health service through their taxes, but don't use those services. As society, there are things that we all pay for, and in the round, we all benefit from, even if you can always find a case study of someone who was paying for it not receiving, or the other way around.
Do you think that the loan could come in a little bit sooner? Apparently it's not coming into October, but obviously we've got the price cap is introduced in April. So could it not be better with the timing on that?
I think the big challenge is with winter bills. Energy consumption goes down a lot in the summer. And so October is a sensible time to be paying people to help with the bit that matters most. That's winter, and that's when the most kind of issues occur. I think the other thing is, candidly, I'm told that one of the reasons is there are still some energy companies whose systems are so inflexible that they've said they wouldn't be able to credit bills to October, or they'll take months to do it. I should say, by the way, that obviously a company with modern systems, and Octopus is an example, if we had to do it, if we could get the money from the government next week, we could distribute it next week. By the way, it's not to say that's what we're proposing. The whole point is I think all companies have to be paying it roughly at the same time to avoid risks like people getting it twice or some people not getting it at all.
What alternative measures would you like to see implemented?
Frankly, I think the government's proposal is so similar to what we suggested that I wouldn't propose any alternative. There's a couple of changes we might make. So I guess we'd prefer to see a slightly higher amount given the magnitude of the bills, and perhaps the targeted amount be paid directly through energy bills rather than through council tax. But I think, these are minor changes. Some people proposed removing VAT or removing green levies, and I think the problem with that is that would just put the burden on taxes. At the end of the day, taxpayers and bill payers are often the same people, and so paying from a different pocket doesn't actually smooth it out. Whereas I think the way we look at it is it's a 1 in 30 year event. You shouldn't have to pay for it in a single year. Spread it over time to make it more manageable was a good idea.